Police Establishment Act of 2020, Section 83, subsection 4, that during protest, the police shall provide adequate security for the protesters. That is the law. So what should be done, or what is expected, if there's going to be a protest and there's an announcement, is to ask the protesters, where do you want to gather, so that the police can surround the place and ensure that hoodlums, so-called, or thugs, normally employed by politicians, deployed by politicians during election, will not take advantage of genuine protests in the country. And I think that is what the government should do now. Try and identify the organizer and collaborate with them to ensure that violence will not occur. How do you identify those who are issuing statements, those who are planning the protest, and then engage with them productively? And then the questions being raised, there are demands that are being made. The government should address this demand. And between now and the 1st of August, it's still a long way.
The level of violence being envisaged can only be described as a state of anarchy. The armed forces on its part will not stand by and allow anarchy to befall our nation. This is because we have seen wars and have witnessed anarchy in countries in which we have operated, particularly during the times of ECOMOG or during our peacekeeping operations in various countries. I believe that some people out there may fantasize about war or state of anarchy, thinking that it is like what they see in the movies. I assure you that war or a state of anarchy is not what you see in the movies. It involves real people, real situations, and real life.
Well, different angles to this debate, to protest or not to protest. Well, the days are counting up until the planned protest in August, and it's important to bring in all of the sides. And I think the goal here should be, one, fixing the economy, ensuring that Nigerians get at least a better end of the stick. We have joining us for the next leg of the conversation a former presidential aspirant of the All Progressives Congress, Mr. Adamu Garba, is a businessman, as a politician as well. You're welcome to the Morning Brief, Mr. Garba.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, looks like you're out of your sabbatical, or you've returned from the sabbatical, which you earlier put up on social media. And what a time to be back, really. So let's get deep into this one. People are saying there needs to be some sort of demonstration, just so that government will hear their voice, if they've not heard it before, hear that we're going through challenges and we need these challenges sorted, right? So that is on the one hand. But for the government, as we've heard, they're saying, well, I think now is a time to just hold off a bit so things don't go badly. So just before I get your thoughts on this one, let me also bring in our second guest. We have joining us Honorable Ikenna Azumchine, a former governorship candidate, PDP Anambra State, is popularly known as Obedient General for New Nigeria. Welcome to the program, Honorable.
Good morning. Good morning to you.
So let me go back to Mr. Garba and just ask you, do you feel the pains of those who are calling for protests? A lot of them said they will be peaceful. Do you resonate with their demands. And I wonder, what is it that you do not agree with, if there is any at all? Mr. Garba.
Thank you very much for this question. I believe that there is no Nigerian today that is not feeling the pain, of the situation we are facing. And also, the demand that they want to protest is actually enshrined in the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. But again, in as much as you have right to protest, you have responsibility to ask questions. Why do you want to protest? That is also a responsibility on you. You need to understand what happened and why do you have to go out on the street and protest. Now, most of the demands of the protesters or the alleged those that are planning to protest are demanding on two things. Mostly has to do with food issue and energy issue, the food inflation and energy security issue. Now, when you go back to the food side, there are too many things that are interconnected that is causing the rise of food pricing in Nigeria. One of which is the most critical, and it has to do with the global economic dynamics and the global geopolitical changes that is happening, especially as a result of the Russian-Ukrainian war. The Russian-Ukrainian war is actually one of the things that precipitated and exacerbated the food inflation globally. Why? Because Russia and Ukraine combined supply nearly 80% of the grains and the fertilizer that we use in agricultural production. So a situation whereby there is global disruption of the supply chain around that axis, it sends a ripple effect across the globe on the rising global food prices. And that is why we are seeing high amount of grain prices in Nigeria. Why? Because there is no country in the world that can exist in isolation. All of us are interconnected global supply chains, and we have to exchange goods and services before we can survive. And that is where the problem is coming from the global perspective. And from the internal socio-political and economic dynamics, we have saboteur in Nigeria. Because of the coming of this administration, there are several reforms that have taken place that several former head of states are unable to summon the courage to do that, especially when you come to the central bank reform policy that took place where we now unify our exchange rate. The unification of the exchange rate exposed some unpatriotic citizens to lack of getting the monies they need in order to continue to profiteer with getting subsidy of dollars. So what they resorted to do is to go into our market with their naira, buy high amount of food, store it in their stores, and eventually make arrangement for the export of this food, sometimes even through illegal corridors outside the country for them to get the forex that they will need to bring in back and begin to trade. That is where the biggest problem started. That is why you see sometimes you go to buy something common as pepe, you won't find it in the market. Or if you find one, you have it at like maybe something that you used to buy for 15 naira, you have to spend 500 naira to buy it. Why? Because there's scarcity, right, which is the normal economics. So there is scarcity. Some of these things are, but they came to the market, they buy this thing at exorbitant prices, they export it in order for them to get the exchange, to get forex that they don't get from CBN anymore.
Well, Mr.
And
Garba,
that is why it is an issue that is affecting us, all of us as Nigerians.
Right.
And our support should be to continue to back the president in order for us to have stability, not to go out on the street and further exacerbate the situation.
Right, I want us to have a good back and forth on this one so we can present all of the views. But the two major drivers of food inflation in Nigeria, and that has been proven time and again, one is the removal of petrol subsidy. Petrol, you know how much petrol sells for, so naturally that cost has been pushed, so it's increased transport cost and the rest. Second is the depreciation of the naira. Right, that's also a big one. We can also talk about insecurity. Farmers cannot go to to the farms. Consequently, they're not able to produce, and that has depreciated, the produce in the market. So those are the three main drivers, and a lot of them are domestic in nature. This is even before talking about the global issues. Nigeria is able to fend and take care of itself in terms of food, but we're not able to because of some of these reasons. But let me go to Honorable and get his opinion on this. Then I'll come back to you. I just wanted to put in those facts as well. So, Honorable Azom Chine, well, he said that some of these things have been...
Yes.
Right. He said that some of these things are being worked on by the government. And the fear time and again is that, well, if these things are being worked on, why then hit the streets to make this situation worse? And, well, if that happens, then we're not able to even fix the problems. We'll have more problems on our hands, Honorable. Honorable Azamchine.
Streets.
Yeah,
yes, I'm with you.
Please go ahead.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I would argue with Garba sincerely because Ukraine and Nigeria, we don't even belong to the same continent. Our problem is in-house. I think that the ruling APC must ask questions about why the farmlands in Benue, Plateau, Taraba, Yola, Adamawa, why the insecurity and dislodging of the locals there is persisting. You have to ask yourself, if I buy a trailer of yam for example, in Taraba, how much is it going to cost me to get it down to Port Harcourt? How many roadblocks will you meet on the road as you're heading to Port Harcourt? These are the issues here. You have the produce guys, you have the local government, you have the emblem, you have all these gangs on the road. Children are suffering. Let's go to the real issues. It's not about the price of grains in Ukraine, well. We don't have any business with Ukraine and feeding Nigeria. Nigeria has all the lands and the fertile grounds to farm whatever it produces and it wants to feed its people with. The issue we have here is hunger, starvation. People are not able to move. Ask Garba to buy a trailer load of yam or goat and live wherever he is in the north and find his way to the other part of the country and then tell us how much he will have expended by the time he arrives his destination and add it to the cost of the food. Nigerians are suffering. Let's all leave political brouhaha and be honest to ourselves. I think it's time that we deal with the real issues, gentlemen. Even you, the journalist now, how much is your salary? You have 2, 3 kids in school? How much is their backpack? The police officers who you are now sending to go and, protect stand against the protest. The least police officer earns about 60,000 or thereabouts. The nearest school to his home, private school, the cheapest will be 50,000 for a term. Please, you really go to the streets? We are always in the streets in Nigeria. We know we are a hot sauce. I'm not going to come here to argue on relevant issues. I want the government to engage those people who are agitated. Everybody is crying out. You cannot blame P2B or blame Atiku or blame anybody. The condition in the country is biting everybody. And I said it last time when I appeared on one of the channels. I said, by 2027, we will not need to tell Nigerians who to vote for because hunger would have corrected our strikes. And nobody is encouraging any violence. People who are determined to protest are people who can't live anymore. They can't survive anymore. They are grasping for bread across board, north, east, west, even the southwesterners.
All right. Mr. Kenna, you are obviously calling for the protest, and there are some other leaders of the protest who are also calling for the protest, but they're not necessarily resident in Nigeria. And questions are being asked about how they're going to participate in the protest, and they're going to face, the challenge posed by security agents, which some of them believe are in the form of, threats for them not to come out to protest. So how are you going to solidarize, really, with young Nigerians, well, the generality of Nigerians who are going to be on the streets protesting if you're not outside, if you're not in the country?
I am always in the country. I had an holiday with my daughter, and this daughter I've not seen for 18 years. So that's not about it. What I'm talking about is that there were accusations that obedience were on P2B was, insinuating and sponsoring. This is a complete false narrative. P2B, if you know P2B, P2B will never even encourage you to go and protest for your own election that you felt that you were disenfranchised. That's a total wrong assertion. What I think the government should do right now is to call the stakeholders. It's not late to engage the protesters. Nobody is encouraging anybody to go and protest and loot. The government should even be proactive to stop those that are planning to, get into the protesters and cause mayhem. I believe that our security agencies are on top of their game. Nobody is encouraging anyone to go and protest and commit crime. People have the right of protest, of course.
Indeed, but if you're that confident, will you be in the country anytime between August the 1st and the 10th to be in the front lines along with other Nigerians who are determined to protest?
Those who know me know that I stand for the truth. I have always said it. I left Nigeria just 2 weeks ago. I am not running away. I'm not encouraging anyone to go and protest, but like I said, obedience. We with supporters of P2B, we have not encouraged anyone to go and protest and commit any crime. If you want to protest, stay within the laws. Listen to the security agencies. Make sure you are law-abiding, and this is your right to protest. Nobody is why should I be running away when I know that I can't fuel my car? Nobody is running away. That's out of it. We are talking about the real issues. Let's go to those officers who would get a pass in Maiduguri and have to pay the salary. The transport fare is already the salary they are getting. What are you going to tell them? What are you going to tell those men in the trenches that their wives will be calling at the midnight call that they need food? Let's go to the real issues. All right, Mr. Kenna, the politicians must understand that Nigerians are hungry. That's just what I want to air out here. Not about politics. Let's leave politics alone.
All right, let's take it back to Mr. Garba. Mr. Garba, Nigeria generally has very low trust quotient for her leaders, and they have a good reason to be not to trust their leaders, given the fact that we've always said that let's begin from 1999 to now. I don't know how many leaders have made our lives better in terms of improvements, in terms of prices. It keeps going up and never goes down. That's on one hand. There's also the abysmal, protracted legacy issues that the Nigerian state has not resolved, such as electricity, such as infrastructure, and the list goes on. Then the Tinubu administration came and liberalized trade, such as removing subsidy and said, look, we can't pay anymore because we have cash crunch, and of course there's corruption in that area, and then floated the Naira. So, but at the end of the day as well, we don't have empirically supported data to say this is how far, this is how long it will take, and these are the possible outcomes. And when you come to a conversation, an engagement with these points, and you don't, is it that you don't expect a massive mass action in terms of pushback? Because that will call to question your scenario planning. Don't you think so?
Is like the last speaker, Mr. Ikenna, has highlighted and the need for protests to continue. This shows, but he's sitting outside the country. So these are the kind of people that are pushing this narrative without understanding and appreciating the effort that is being undertaken by Mr. President. If you go back to the history and track the trajectory of subsidy in Nigeria, almost every government have approached to incremental removal of oil subsidy. From the Obasanjo regime to Yaradua to Jonathan to Buhari and now to Tinubu. If you go back and see how they remove it, they will remove subsidy. I think by 2007 when Obasanjo was leaving office, the cost for subsidy that was paid in that 2007 was about 307 billion. Now when Jonathan was leaving in 2015, the cost of subsidy was like 1.7 trillion. Even though there is incremental removal, maybe from subsidizing 10 naira to removing it to 5 naira, yet the cost to pay in terms of subsidy again get increased. So it doesn't reduce. So what the president do is that he said he cannot continue to tolerate that rubbish any longer. This money must go back to Nigerians. And that is why he flattened the subsidy at one point so that nobody will have any issue to say that he will have to go and, plan their way to steal Nigerians' money in the name of subsidy. But again, there are some processes that must be put in place for this money to get to the grassroots. One of these processes was giving the autonomy of the local government council that you see today. That autonomy of the local government is an opportunity for the president to reach out directly to the grassroots and send all the necessary support that is required so that development objectives can reach a common man on the street. The same talk that he did, Mr. Ikenna, about the fact that when you carry goods from Taraba and you are trying to take it to the southern part of the country, the cost gets higher. There is a comprehensive program that is supposed to be organized, which is being organized by the local government council, whereby you have only one payment for the goods that you carry from one location to any other location in the country without being stored by any other person on the way. But it cannot be implemented until local government have their autonomies. And now that they have the autonomy, this program can go on. So there are so many other things that are taking place gradually, and you don't expect the reform action to just take place like magic. What we need to do is to trust somebody like the president that we have today, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who has the courage and the will to be able to execute something that even military generals could not do in the past. So what we need to do is to give him a fair understanding the fact that removing fuel subsidy itself is injurious to some cabals and cartels in this country, because the monies that they used to get will no longer go to their pocket. And what they save will be diverted to making sure that this subsidy get back so that they can continue to run our country dry. And that is why if you look at the end bad governance protest that they are planning, the first thing on the line item was returning back the fuel subsidy. This even begs the question to ask, does that mean that these subsidy cartel are the ones that are actually sponsoring this end bad governance protest? Are Nigerians being used as gullible assets to be able to perpetrate agenda of the cartel that otherwise suck Nigeria dry through the back door in the name of subsidy, simply because Mr. President have the courage to deal with them and in favor of Nigerians? So what we need to do is to look at our president, look at him deeply, and look at what he is doing. He meant very well for this country, and he wants to make sure that these monies get to the grassroots, but it cannot go without some constitutional checks and balances.
If I may button, Mr. Garba,
go ahead.
So let me explain to you what is going on. So in 2016 also we had a recession. It was a tough time for our country. But within the last 1 year of President Bola Tinubu, it is even tougher in the last 1 year than even that entire recession. By the numbers, and I mean all of the major numbers in terms of macroeconomic data. And Nigerians have looked at it and said, what triggered it? It's fuel subsidy removal and floating of the naira when we haven't been able to resolve the protracted legacy issue. I was very deliberate with my question and you haven't answered it. I said, Nigeria has trust quotient issue. They don't trust their leaders. They don't trust President Bola Tinubu. It has nothing to do with him. It's just the way Nigerians perceive their leaders. And the second part is we have protracted legacy issue that no matter what you do, if these issues are not resolved, it's going to be difficult. That's why the global north, as I give as example, and the Eurozone, they can have a target to go to 2% inflation rate because their legacy issues to a large extent have been resolved. So when they put measures, they can measure it and say, within this time, it can happen. So my question is, are you seeing enough clarity to say in the next 2 years or 6 months or how many, whatever time you want to put, this is where we're going to be as a country? Because that's a question that when we ask people in government and supporters of the government, it appears you guys are evasive to it. Give us an answer.
You see, the situation is that Nigeria's issue is a systematic issue. And that is why, as you rightly said, the trust in politicians, even by World Economic Forum standard, out of 140 countries that is surveyed, I think Nigeria emerged around 138. So very low. Nigerians don't trust their politicians. They don't trust leaders generally. Why? Because the system is designed to make sure that everything rotates back at the center. And that is what is contributing to the high cost of government. Although people think it's high cost of governance, it's not actually governance, it's the high cost of government. Where you see a minister with 50 fleet of cars, you see some members of assembly with 20 fleets of cars, some DG with 30 fleet of cars, several expensive lifestyles. That is actually what is fueling this discontent, which is what we, even us, are calling that some austerity measures need to be declared so that there can be some structural arrangement to limit the capacity of these holders of public offices in terms of using a kind of the resources at their disposal by channeling it more to productive means as opposed to the consumption area. So this is it. So there is a systematic issue. The constitutional design, the making of the country makes everything to gravitate to the center. And what President Tinubu is doing is trying to make sure that there is this decentralization of the resources through the same mechanism that makes the system come completely to the center. And that is why if you look at what the current National Assembly is doing in collaboration with the executive, is to see that there is a massive constitutional amendment that will cater for systematic change that will bring about this catalyst. But the truth of the matter is, as the system is now, if we say we are coming on the street to force that we should reverse back to the previous era where we have gone beyond, thank God that even the protesters are saying take it back. They want to take us back. They want to carry us and push us backward. We will never go backward. We always go forward. But the issue is that we have to fix the system. So the systematic structure of Nigeria is fundamentally faulty, and it is designed to make sure that the leaders are set against ordinary people. And that is why it is important for the constitution to be amended so that we can have a more people-centric, productive-centric governance where people can benefit from the dividend of democracy, as you have seen, as you said, in the global north.
Well,
and
Honorable,
the situation where you have a systematic failure is actually similar to what is happening in all global south countries, including Nigeria.
All right,
but
Mr.
Nigeria
Garba
now have a leader who is determined to do the right thing, and I think we need to give him chance to implement those policies without disrupting the process that he has already undertaken that will put Nigeria on the path to progress and prosperity.
All right, Mr. Garba, I think another question has been, so what will the chance look like? How long is this chance meant to be? Is the government saying, don't worry, give us 2 years. After 2 years, we'll solve this. So just saying, give us chance, be patient, without a time frame to it. I think that's also been another question. But just a moment, let me take this to Honorable Azam Chine, so they can respond to some of the points you've made. First, about those backing this protest. Honorable Mr. Garba believes that might just be people who are benefiting from what has been described as a subsidy scam in the past that are also behind this protest, saying return subsidy, you know, take us back. That was one of the points he made. That's on the one hand. On the second hand is, you can then confirm if those are some of the demands that you have, at least from your end of this, because there are lots of groups involved in this. So is that one of the demands? Subsidies should be returned. Add to that the sort of disagreement or divergent opinion between your leader, Mr. Peter Obi, and one of the major leaders of your party, Governor Oti of Abia State, over this protest. Mr. Peter Obi backing the protest, but Governor Oti saying, well, rather than protest, let's have a conversation. So it's quite a lot on your plate, Honorable.
You're asking me as if I'm part of those planning the protest. I am not part of those planning the protest, but I'm here to clarify the fact that obedience, the ones I belong to, have not encouraged anyone to plan any protest.
Also, you do not support the protest.
At the same time, we are not telling them not to protest. If you must protest, it's within the law for you to air your views in the manner that you do not break the law. That's what we are saying.
So you will not be protesting. The obedience will not be protesting. Is that what
the obedience, the ones that feel like obedience are the common people, the avocado drivers, the people who are hungry. You don't know, but for me, obedience are those people I meet every day that are asking me to help them feed. Let me go back to what he was talking about. I went to secondary school and primary school in Nigeria. My school fees was 120 naira in then, not long ago. Most of the people in the armed forces today paid the same school fees. We got egg, we got milk, we got food for 3 months in one of the federal schools. Are we not being, wicked to our younger ones today? Where are the unity schools? Can people feed themselves? We have to go to the real issues and make sure we don't get involved in political wranglings and forget that people are hungry. I will always maintain that you have to demonstrate in a peaceful manner and make sure you do not participate in looting, do not break the law. The security agencies must make sure they protect Nigerians. Nobody wants Nigeria to be in chaos, nobody.
Right. So
but I always say this, my last take.
Right.
I said it in my different interviews that by 2027, Nigerians will not need anybody to tell them who to vote for. By then, hunger would have corrected our side. I'm not here to argue or be accused of running away. I've lived in Nigeria for the past 14 years, and I will remain in Nigeria and keep telling Nigerians the truth. I supported Peter Obi because I was in PDP for the past 20-something years. I've worked for different presidential aspirants from the north, from wherever. But now, my instincts is telling me that this man, Peter Obi, has what it takes to move us from consumption to production. And that was what caught my sight.
Well,
I don't know why the Garba, what he sees in his president, but this was why I'm obedient.
Well, I think everybody's entitled. I think everybody's entitled to support whomever they want to support.
Country first.
All right, Honorable, I think everybody has a choice. That's why it's democracy. You have a choice. You can choose who you want to support. And it looks like you're painting a grim picture for Nigeria and saying that hunger will correct, their decisions. I'm not sure that is palatable, and pun intended there, for Nigerians, projecting that they will be hungry for the coming years.
No,
I imagine that's not what you want to say.
I'm hungry too, I can tell you.
Well, some will disagree with you
2 weeks ago,
on that
I had to fuel my car. Listen.
All right. No, I want us to speak to the issues.
I had to fuel my car 45 to 50,000 naira instead of 12,000 naira. Okay. This is my concern.
All right. I think we're well aware of the condition where you are at. You said you went for vacation to visit, so it's understandable. And that's not even the point that we're trying to speak to here. We're speaking to the condition here in Nigeria. So let me take this to Mr. Garba quickly. To make a bad situation worse, and this is a challenge a lot of Nigerians have in terms of timing and planning. Now, Nigerians have to face petrol scarcity. I mean, this is a time you'd expect that all hands will be on deck from government to ensure that these issues that may even spark anger in the slightest manner are resolved. So doesn't that question yet again the thinking, the planning, the coordination in government that we're back to this point facing fuel scarcity when things are meant to be easing? Mr. Garba, I'm sure you are also facing that where you are.
Yes, thank you for this question. And I really like the way you answered Mr. Ken, who is enjoying himself somewhere outside the country, yet trying to campaign for Peter Obi when they lost their election. Instead of them to be thinking of what they can do in 2027, they are now still busy campaigning after losing the election. I don't understand why he has to come to TV and be campaigning over losing a candidate that have lost. Then again, the subsidy you mentioned, the issue that you mentioned, that is why I started by saying that we need to question the subsidy cartel. Are they the ones foiling this protest? Why is it that if we have interconnection of businesses before fuel can come into this country, at the point when we are having a choke point, when Nigerians are crying and threatening to come to the street to start protesting, and some people are trying to deny fuel, right? So I think we Nigerians, we the patriots, should have to look at this as some people, some group of saboteurs that are doing everything possible to attack this government and bring down our peace, and turn it into chaos. So we should not let them, because the situation whereby you have
role of government,
expenses in food, expenses in transportation,
that is the role of government, not everyday Nigerians. We can't go to the high sea. We can't oversight the NMPCL. That's why we elected a government. And the NMPCL is owned by government, the Ministry of Finance, Inc., the Ministry of Petroleum, Inc. So the government should be the one responsible.
Of course. No, No, they should be responsible. You are completely right. But Nigerians should also give understanding. They should question the entire motive around the entire situation. That's what I'm saying. And like you said, again, about timeline, I believe, from my own perspective as a private citizen, I believe the government should declare austerity measures. The cost of government is too high. A situation whereby we spend too much to run government is very expensive. Like, as I mentioned, fleet of cars, some lifestyles that doesn't make sense coming on public media. I think we need to have some symbolic representation of cutting down, you know, on the cost of government. Not cost of governance. Let's allow the governance to run, but the cost of government itself. And the second thing, again, is we cannot be tied down to the dollar-denominated markets. Since we have options in a multipolar world where we have the emergence of countries like BRICS, like alliances like BRICS, bodies like BRICS, a situation that, you know, just few years ago, 2 years ago, there was prediction that Egypt is going down, Ethiopia is going down, South Africa is going down due to these economic measures that they have found themselves. By joining the BRICS, they are able to explore another trading window where they use their local currencies in exchange for what they need to import or export. So I think Nigeria needs to look into that direction. We have to start to actively move towards the alliance of the multipolar order that will give us options not to 100% be dependent on the dollar-denominated market of the West.
Pardon me if I may come in there. Yeah. Joining BRICS may even be more futuristic, you know, than even the expected results of the current policies of this administration. In your reference to subsidy and your commendation for the president for removing subsidy, that may be debatable, particularly because major marketers are saying that the current landing cost of petrol is 1,117 naira, and you know petrol currently is selling for 850 naira, and you know this stabilization document released by the Ministry of Finance currently, analysis of that document by some experts to the effect that the federal government may be paying subsidy to the tune of 5.4 trillion naira in 2024 alone. So are you saying that by this, the federal government is still not paying subsidy even as we speak?
No, based on the release of the analysis, if we really go back to paying subsidy, then it's unfortunate that the saboteurs have won the battle, and it's something that we should not let them. This is the money that should go to the building of our hospitals and roads and schools, strengthening our institutions, and giving a lot of support to the military and the police to ensure peace and prosperity and security of our borders. You know, this is where the money is supposed to go to. But the situation whereby we have this thing coming back again, then is actually very unfortunate. And that is why personally I am 100%, and I believe like most patriotic Nigerians, we are 100% in support of the stand of the complete extinguishing of public subsidy from our books.
So the federal government, your party has not summoned the willingness, the political will rather, to remove fuel subsidy.
But it's not that the party didn't. I think this is the party that have done one of the best things in this country, especially under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. On the first day of his inauguration, the first attack was the removal of fuel subsidy. That is a very strong courage. I don't know what courage Nigerians are looking for beyond that. But it's unfortunate that because of the machination of this cabal, of these saboteurs, they are able to manipulate a system whereby, you know, Nigerians begin to see the removal of fuel subsidy as against them, as opposed to be for them. And I will admit that we also, as a party, we didn't really work hard to communicate these things properly to the people so that they can see the value in the removal of subsidy. And began to imagine how we can use these resources effectively to better the life of common Nigerians.
Mr. Garba, we're totally out of time.
This is why we lost the information. Yes.
My apologies. Let's take it to Mr. Ekena so he can have his last take on this one as well. Mr. Ekena, maybe you respond to some of the things Mr. Garba has said, and also be very clear. I know you said you're not leading, or your group of obedience are not leading the protest, but you support the protest. If you were to itemize 5 things, because one of the things the government has started is the fact that there's no clarity as to the demands. Though we've seen some things they call the charter of demand or something like that across social media. So if you were to itemize 5 things that the president can do right now, because really nobody wants to protest if things are working. Nobody will wake up and want to protest. And if certain actions are taken, perhaps this protest will be called off. Nobody wants to see things go south after peaceful protesters go on the streets at the end of the day. So if there were like 5 things you expect this government to do right now to make these young people to say, okay, we've seen action, we can give them time as they requested, what will it be?
First of all, let me be very frank as a true Nigerian. Let me quickly address Garba. Garba, I grew up in northern Nigeria. I'm Igbo. I speak Hausa fluently. I will tell you one adage in Hausa. Ka gaya ma mutane ka za ka ba su abinci, za ka ba su alheri, za ka bude musu hanya, abubuwa za su zo wurin su. Let me translate. You came on the mantle that you take Nigerians to a better place, that you give them food, you provide succor, you provide the enabling environment for them to thrive. 1 year on, you have not done that. Why are you blaming us? Why are you telling me that I'm part of those encouraging protests? Nigerians, even in your community, people are hungry. So let's leave it there. You also claim that we lost the election. You that won the election, why are you now allowing us to suffer? Do the right things. If you are doing the right things, Nigerians will call you out. Let me leave it on that part. If I were the government today,
Ken, you are not.
Hold on. Let me finish, please. If I were to be
You are not
the government
suffering.
today,
You look clean.
let me just
you
say
look
one thing.
rich.
Let me say,
you are well,
allow me
well
to finish,
trimmed.
please.
You are living in a foreign land.
No, allow me to
Mr.
finish.
Garba, just a moment. Allow him land. We have
Allow
time
me
now.
to finish. You don't know my background. You don't know why I'm here. I've been living outside Nigeria for the past 30 years, but I've remained in Nigeria. So you don't have to accuse me of what I'm not. Allow me to finish. If I were to be in APC today, first of all, you call on the stakeholders. You go directly to why is insecurity in the states persisting? Open up the agrarian roads, make sure there is no herdsmen farmers crisis, make sure the food can get to the consumers wherever they are, make sure that your policies towards import and export is reasonable. I wouldn't think we'll be here today, but you leave what you're supposed to do and you are pointing fingers at people ordinary who are suffering with the Nigerians.
Right.
I don't want to go that route with you. The APC government should do those things that they campaigned with.
Well,
My
we're all about
principal campaign
solutions.
on taking us from consumption to production.
Right.
You should, go straight to what you told Nigerians and make sure you give them those dividends and nobody will complain.
Well, the APC campaigned on renewed hope, so it's clear enough what the job is for them to do.
Give us the hope.
And that's what they're meant to do. But gentlemen, we have to anchor at this point. One thing is clear, governments at all levels must show empathy at this point, not just talk. They have to show it indeed and look at those pain points and ensure that they are tackled head on. I mean, Nigerians have had their lines barred yet again. There's fuel scarcity adding to all of these challenges they're facing. So government needs to show empathy. If anything right now, that is the least we expect from them. But gentlemen, we have to thank you so much. We've been speaking with Honorable Ikenna Azumchine, former governorship candidate, PDP Anambra State. It's popularly known as Obedient General for New Nigeria. We've also been speaking with Mr. Adamu Garba, former presidential aspirant in APC and a businessman. Gentlemen, we thank you for your time on the program. A group of Nigerians, they're meant to be on a scholarship, but it looks like they're facing more of hardship than scholarship. That's the moment. Stay with us.